Hi, everyone. This is Lauren with AIA California. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll wait a couple more minutes to allow everyone to jump on, and then we'll get started.
Hi, it's Henry.
Hi, Henry.
So who else are we waiting for? Or this is, I see.
So we had about 50 people register, and so I just wanted to give them a couple of minutes to hop on. It looks like we have about 30 online right now.
Great, okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Ian Merker, the AIA California Vice President of Communications, will be joining us in a few minutes. So in his place, I will welcome you all to this webinar. We are very excited to have this live how-to webinar, so you all will get some valuable information as well as earn continuing education credit for attending today. So I will be reporting that attendance by the end of this week. So it's a double bonus webinar. And we really wanted to have this opportunity so that way you all could ask any questions that you had about filling out the performance data worksheet that we require for both our design and residential design awards programs. And we have joining us here Henry Siegel. He is our liaison and helps us with all things sustainability. And so I will turn this call over to Henry, and he will help guide us through the rest of the agenda.
Hello, everyone. I'm really here to answer your questions, but wanted to start by just talking a few minutes about the whys and wherefores of why we are asking for performance data as part of all design award submissions. So as some of you may know, if you attended the recent AIA convention, there was a motion passed by the attendees at the convention to make sustainability, given the urgency of climate change, a much more urgent part of what the AIA does, and to really try to position the AIA as an institution to be somebody who's really trying to address climate change in the design of all buildings, and really make it the focal point of part of how the AIA represents us to the public. And the idea of trying to incorporate some of this information in design awards is really to make sustainability an important value of the design awards. So design and sustainability are both what buildings look like is very important, and sustainability is very important. So we're just trying to make sure that all those values are represented in the design awards. We have developed a form that we ask you to fill in that gives us information that a group uses to evaluate and score these. And can you bring that up, Lauren? So many of you have seen this form.
One moment here.
Great. So the idea of this form is to get at some of the metrics of sustainability, and principally energy performance. And we've tried to make that easy as possible by allowing you to, for in-state projects at least, rely on Title 24. Now, there's a wrinkle there, of course, as there always is, which is that Title 24 forms use a very specific form of energy metric that the utilities use that isn't really useful for us, and that's called TDV, energy metric. That's time-dependent valuation. So because it's a utility company, energy that happens at peak load times is more expensive than energy that happens at other times, and that all gets worked into the TDV metric. It's much better for us as architects just to know the standard energy use of our buildings by the standard measure, which is called energy use intensity, or EUI, which is typically measured in kBTU per square foot per year. So that's what we're looking for. It's possible to find that in the Title 24 forms, but it takes a bit more work. And we are working on instructions to make it easier for people to find that. So I think with that, that's really all I wanted to say in advance, and really wanted to make this about answering questions that people have and helping them to try to make this an easier process for you.
Great. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand or put the questions in the chat, and I will allow you to speak, so that way we can have the group hear your question if you'd like. And I apologize in advance. Those that have called in only will not be able to speak, but will gain the benefit of hearing those questions from others who joined the webinar via the phone app or webinar on their computer.
Hi, Lauren, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Ian. Just wanted to let you know I'm on the call now.
Okay, thank you. So we did have a couple of questions ahead of the webinar that we can address while people are chatting in the, I see some people actively chatting in the chat box. The first question is, who does the technical review consist of, their background, experience, etc.? So wanting some more information about that technical review committee.
So right now, that technical review committee is made up of architects who are experienced in sustainable design, so they understand the meaning of the metrics that they're looking at and what might be, let's say, in the range of a high performance versus a sort of average performance versus a below average performance in terms of what the energy metrics show. And it also includes mechanical engineers and energy modelers who sort of understand the metrics as well, so they know basically how to benchmark the results that we're seeing. So we have a call for volunteers, and we ask for people to do that. And if people have the right experience, we put them on the list to be technical evaluators.
Okay, great. So it looks like we have a question via chat, and it looks like someone had asked, what if the project doesn't have applicable sustainability measures to record?
I guess I would ask a little bit more detail about that. Is it if it's a building that uses energy and at all, and of course there are projects that are pavilions that don't have any heating or cooling whatsoever, then you would just put not applicable, because I think both the technical reviewers and the jury understands that there may be projects, rare though they are, that don't use any energy, for example, because they don't have any systems. They may be an outdoor pavilion. However, if it is a building that's using a heating and cooling system and using lighting, then there are energy metrics that you should be able to find and apply. So if there's any more nuance to that question or more detail, please feel free to ask a follow-up question.
Melissa, I have unmuted you if you'd like to elaborate, or if Henry addressed your question that you mentioned in the chat.
Yeah, it makes sense. There were just some of the additional renewable energy or water efficiency in a residential application if there wasn't a whole, I don't know at this point actually what they have, but I was just wondering if it was very, if there's not a whole lot of data to record.
Right. I mean, there are projects, for example, that are remodel projects where you're not adding any square footage.
Right.
And you're maybe not changing the heating system at all, but maybe you're changing out all the lighting as a part of that project. So you'd give us the information on that and, explain that you're not changing the mechanical system at all. We're not looking to eliminate people. That's not the goal here. The goal is to get information that's relevant so that we can see how the buildings perform. But if it's a project that's not changing, a remodel that's not adding square footage and not changing a system, we're not looking to eliminate that project.
Great, that makes sense.
Okay, perfect. So the next question that we had come in was, let's see here. If a project does not pass the technical review, is it disqualified, or are all projects shown to the jury regardless?
All projects are shown to the jury regardless. You may get a score on your sustainability review that says that you are below average or average, but the jury is going to see every project regardless of how the technical review panel scores it.
Perfect, thank you. And to elaborate a little bit on that, low sustainability scores are eligible for a merit award, and they have been awarded in the past, but only those with the high sustainability metrics that were judged or that meet code will be considered for the honor award. Did anyone else have any questions they'd like to address to the technical review committee? Okay, another question that came up is how would they fill out the performance data worksheet for international projects and how they could make those work with projects, for example, in China?
It really depends on what the design standards use for that project. If it's in China, it's highly unlikely you did Title 24 for that project. You may have followed ASHRAE standards. If you followed ASHRAE standards, you could give us the ASHRAE baseline you used and how that building measured up against the ASHRAE baseline. If there's no ASHRAE baseline, even projects that are in China are likely to be larger rather than smaller projects, I would think. So they are likely, I would think, to have done energy modeling of some sort. And if that's the case, we are just looking for the energy modeling results. What does the energy model that you used show as an EUI, and how that compares to the baseline that's also in the model? And of course, if you have none of those, you can't give us any information. Just explain that in the brief statement at the beginning of the form.
Perfect. Another question about the spreadsheet itself are, what are the different tabs on the Excel document for? By Emily Wheeler, and we can have her unmute if she needs to elaborate.
Can you scroll down on the form?
Sure, I can go to the other tabs if you'd like, or?
Sure.
Okay. So this is the second tab where it says edits accepted for easy reading.
Yeah, so we're just showing you some examples of the kind of information we're looking for.
Okay.
Just to give you some idea, to make it easier to see what we're looking for. And you'll have to scroll down on that one. Yeah, so the idea on this particular tab is that you just replace any of the red text with the information that you have.
Okay, perfect. And then the 2A for 2008, is this just more examples she was asking of what to do?
Okay, I actually don't know what to say. I'm confused by this one, so I have to take a closer look at this. and get a better understanding of what this one has.
Okay.
It's different.
And just to the group in general, Henry and a couple of other really hardworking individuals, Bill Burke and Bill Letty, are working together to create some really good instructions, which they've already started, and then a more user-friendly performance data worksheet for next year as well that we will release.
And could you just click on the next one, the next tab?
Sure.
Okay,
there's actually a few of them. Yeah.
And scroll up on that one. I think we're just trying to show different baselines in each of these.
Okay.
So we're looking to show examples that give you baseline information based on the year of the code and different codes.
Perfect. And then Melissa's other question about the submission guidelines, I can answer offline. The short answer to including captions or images is it's really up to the person submitting on how you want to get across your explanation of the project. And while we're waiting for other people to throw their questions in the chat, Ian Merker has joined us, and maybe Ian, if you want to go over the portion of why sustainability is so important to AIA California. Henry touched base on the recent resolution that was passed at convention, and maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on what you've heard as part of the executive committee for AIA California.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on the call, Lauren. As Lauren said, I'm Ian Merker. I'm the Vice President of Communications and Public Affairs for AIA California. The purpose of my position is to work with the executive committee and communications staff to put out the positive message of the value of architects. In California, with our awards programs, a lot of our focus lately has been on what makes California unique. And one of those things, by all means, is sustainability or being outside of the box or ahead of the game on meeting future energy and emissions goals. So it's important to us that part of our message is this sustainability metric in our awards programs, and we want to celebrate the great things that architects are doing in relation to that. That being said, it's not 100% of our awards programs. Design is important, but as our Committee on the Environment has stated repeatedly, design is not exclusive of sustainability. In fact, it's a more beautiful building if it's not ruining the earth. So when these submissions come through and once the awardees are selected, we want to start to harvest the important parts of the sustainability metrics that are expressed in your submission. So it's not going to be something that is 100% of what we're doing in publicizing your work, but it's an important part of what we do in California, and we want to continue that legacy.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ian, for that. Did we have any more questions on the performance data worksheet or sustainability in our design awards programs, whether it's design awards or residential design awards? Oh.
And Lauren, this is Henry. I do want to get the answer to the tab question, and do we have emails for everybody so we can get that out to people?
Yes.
Okay.
So it looks like we have another question, and it says, does meeting code minimum, not being LEED certified, and not filling out the optional not required sections give you an average or low sustainability score?
Yes. It would be average at best, because there's no way to tell if you're above average without providing some of that information.
Okay. And Diana, I could unmute you if you want to elaborate. If not, we can move on to other questions. No? Okay. Perfect. Okay, so if anybody doesn't have any other questions, Henry or Ian, do you have any parting remarks before we wrap up this call? It was a quick 30-minute introductory call on the performance data worksheet and what we're looking for.
Just some little detailed information. If you're looking at Title 24, and all you can find is the TDV energy usage, there are some other places to look within the Title 24 report to get standard kBTU per square foot EUI kind of information, and there are two sources for that. Depending on what version of Title 24 software you used, you may have a form in the report called an Econ 1 form. If you have that form, you should be able to get real rather than TDV EUI information out of that. The other place to look is most reports have a longer report called a Performance 1 report or a Perf 1 report. If you look for Table U of the Perf 1 report, you should be able to find real actual site EUI information for your building as opposed to the TDV version of the energy information. So those are just two places to look to get better information within the Title 24 report. And we will be issuing more detailed instructions for how to find that information, but we don't have it yet. But those are two places to look where you can get better information within the Title 24 report. And if you don't have that information in your office already, talk to whoever did the Title 24 report for you and ask them to get you that more detailed information so that you can get that more correct energy information to report. Any questions about that?
Yeah, this is Ian. I would just reiterate that if you are an architectural design office and you're using outside mechanical, electrical consultants, don't be afraid to engage them to find that information, even if it is within the documents you already have at hand. I'm sure they'd be happy to work with you and win the award along with you.
Good point. Thanks. So there's one more question there, Lauren, on the chat. So somebody asked a question about scoring metric for award winners. So the way we score the actual submissions, and this doesn't, and the jury can use those scores that the technical review panel in any way that they want. So that's, but we are scoring them this year on a 1 to 5 scale, with 3 being average. And the reason we chose that system is because that's the standard for how statisticians evaluate surveys of all kinds, and that way we can actually analyze the results, and we can compare how different technical reviewers review how they score, whether they're a hard score or an easy score, and then you can use some statistical means to sort of equalize those so you get a better understanding of how people are scoring and to try to make them as equal as possible across all the different technical reviewers. So we're trying to make that as neutral and as objective as possible. And then whatever that score is, the sustainability metric score, the jury gets to use those scores however they'd like to.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
And there is a sort of the jury can give an award for high performing projects, and they choose that high performance award from only the projects that score in the sort of 4 to 5 range for sustainability on that technical review score. So something at least above average.
Okay, great. Do we have any more questions? Remember, you could raise your hand and I can unmute you, or you can type them in the chat. So another question is, how do you score historic projects that were exempt from Title 24?
Very good question, and it's just like a remodel project, is that we just ask you to explain that to us. There are plenty of historic projects that also do things to improve the energy performance, and when you do that, we certainly want to know about it, because that would be important to know and to evaluate. But if it's an historic project that did not do anything to change energy performance and is not required to do so, you should just put that in the brief statement, the number 1 brief statement at the beginning, to explain that, and then the jury will judge that project on its merits other than sustainability.
Perfect, thank you for that. And also a good place that Henry has mentioned to me in the past that I thought you all would benefit from is that if you ever did have any questions about not including enough information, to also use that narrative to address any of the sustainability requirements. There's a specific section for sustainable strategies, but then there's also a section where you can talk about the project in general. And so feel free to use that space to talk about sustainability as well. Okay, do we have a last call for questions before we wrap up? Okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining Henry, Ian, and I on this Sustainability How-To Performance Data Worksheet webinar. And if you have any other questions, you can email me. I'm sure I've spoken to you all at least once or twice in this process. And then Henry, we have all of the emails, and so we can send you out some information after the fact on the clarification for the different tabs that was asked earlier. And once again, you all will receive credit, continuing education credit, for attending this webinar. And on behalf of AIA California, thank you so much for attending today.
All right, thanks everybody. And if you have more questions, feel free to let us know.
Thank you.